Hello, and welcome to the second episode of The Special Relationship. I am Rachel. I am British. This is Nicole. She is American. Hello, Nicole.
Hello.
And we are going to try and unpick the Atlantic divide and talk about British culture and American culture. Is that about right?
That sounds great. Great job once again.
Thank you. Today we're looking at Huns versus hillbillies. So it's a little bit of a versus type episode. I am going to explain what a Hun is, but Nicole is going to cover off hillbillies. But first, we'd want to do a little bit of a state of the nation. And I guess I have an observation and then a question for you, Nicole. My
Let's do
observation
it.
is that Britain is gripped by the Epstein files.
Mm-hmm.
It is the number 1, 2, and 3 story on every single news station, website, newspaper, whatever. And things have got very serious very quickly. So
Must be.
it's wild. So we have this guy called Peter Mandelson, who used to be the ambassador to America. He has had to quit the Lords. He's had to quit the Labour Party. There is a police.
Is he a representative? Like
He was. So he was
he's a lord? Wait, real quick. MP, got it. I got that. Lord,
no.
I don't really know about.
He was an MP and then he became a lord, which
That's like a representative, sort of?
Kind of, but you're not voted. You're not voted for. You are appointed a lord. Unless you retire, people don't leave. And like there is no mechanic to like get rid of anybody. So he has like fallen on his sword in a way.
Okay.
But look, without getting too much into the weeds here, my point is that Brits are opening up criminal investigations left, right, and center. There are consequences for lying. And then I look across the pond. I'm actually broadcasting from Los Angeles today. And nothing is happening in America. There are no consequences. Please tell me what is going on.
Well, it must be nice to live in a country where they're like, wait, this is bad. Like, we should start talking about this. You forgot to say that Melinda Gates has a lot to say. You know, the wife of one of the main guys who has been implicated. She has a lot to say, of course. Otherwise, just going through my Google News really quick, I'm reading about Prince Andrew. Woody Allen's wife, in one of her emails to Epstein, said that Me Too went too far. You know, we're really doing this right, as we always do as America. We always get things wrong. I would say similar to the UK, this is the big story. When did that drop happen? Just a few days ago, just a few like business days ago. And so, you know, everybody and their mother is making a TikTok about the thing that they found and how this ties back to Israel and Russia and Putin and Trump's owned and et cetera. That could be my TikTok, but that's mostly what I'm seeing. But of course, from our leaders and from our representatives, not a single word. Not yet. I think I saw, maybe it was Ted Lieu from California say yesterday at some Democratic speech or something that, like, you know, we have to start doing something about this, but, you know, of course said it in the most polite way possible. Yeah, we are in the thick of it. And I think everybody here feels bewildered, feels disgusted. You know, that's something else I think we're all kind of dealing with. I saw a TikTok last night that was like, hey guys, don't forget, like, you're not an FBI agent. None of us are really like equipped to kind of take in all of the stuff that we're reading and digest it and find the context and all of this stuff. I've been like crying the past couple days, and I don't know that it's totally unrelated to just consuming this shit for 24 hours a day. But we are hoping for, at any point, for people to start stepping down or getting in trouble or anything. And right now we're really just in the data processing phase, I think. And I once again have to say it must be nice to live somewhere where people are feeling shame, which is kind of what we talked about last episode. Like, you guys feel embarrassed. Like, you wouldn't just keep pressing forward. It makes sense that one of your representatives is like, oh shit, I gotta go. Whereas ours are like, nope, nothing to see here. Hee hee.
So do you think America is in like a post consequences place? Because that's what it feels like to me looking across the water.
I think we've been in this place for 10 years. I think, you know, if we go back and you and I were together when this happened, when the Pussy tapes came out, the Access Hollywood tapes, I think that all of us were out on that floor at work thinking, It's over. It's done. That was like the smallest little view into what the next decade of our lives was going to look like in terms of the lack of accountability that is just rampant in not only politics, but the culture. Our songs suck, our fucking music suck. Like everything is just so full of losers and shit right now that I think we've been in that place for a long time. I think there is like psychic justice in the world. I just think that there is a balance that will eventually, nature, as Jeff Goldblum said in Jurassic Park, nature finds a way. We can't keep going this way forever. You just can't. Like the laws of physics, like you can't keep going this way forever. Though, of course, there have been very bad things that have happened throughout American history and will continue to happen. But at some point regarding this specific issue, like shit has to snap. I don't think we're post accountability, but I think we've been in the trenches for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. I mean, it's not necessarily a point of pride for being British, but
Yeah.
when I've looked at both reactions, I am happier that Britain is doing something about it. And it feels like people are facing some consequences. Now, what I should say though, is that I don't think any of this is that helpful for the victims. This is like a politician who's like losing their politician privileges. And so I don't even know whether it marries up to this huge crime that's gone on that appears to have, been completely swept under the carpet. So like how victims feel on this, I've got no idea. But as a
I
Brit, I'm
know.
a bit like, okay, at least some negative things are happening to these people who just had clear disregard for what this guy was doing or did. It's
Yeah.
absolutely wild to me.
Yeah. I mean, we're certainly not at the end of the story. I think we're only at the beginning. So I hope
True.
America will rise to the occasion, and we're just going to have to see. We're going to have to get people off their phones and off their couches to like pay attention to this stuff and see.
Shall we do a handbrake turn into hillbillies?
Is that British?
Well, kind of, I guess. I'm like, we're going from one
Like, what's
incredibly
that?
serious subject
Do you do that on
into,
the articulated lorry?
well, I'm not allowed to drive an articulated lorry. Maybe I should explain. I once made Nicole James cry with laughter for approximately 7 business days because I described something as an articulated lorry, which is what we call them in Britain. But in America, they are
Semi trucks. And I said,
semi
what
trucks.
the hell are you talking about? And I love it. I
What we
love
call them.
it's just so whimsical. I love it. I love it.
Well, we're
But yeah,
slamming
let's
on
do
the
our
brakes
handbrake turn.
and we're
Yes.
going to do a handbrake turn into my question for you. And it is, can you tell me, as a British person, what is a hillbilly?
Yes, and I loved hearing that in your accent. My question back to you before I get into my spiel is, do you have any reference to what a hillbilly is, or what do you already know about what a hillbilly is or where you've heard it?
I feel like it's a slur, maybe.
Okay.
Like, I feel like always hear it in the context of someone being mean about somebody or like doing them down. But then it also seems to correlate with like country type folk, like rural people. And it's maybe a word that can be used interchangeably with like, it suggests like someone who's not smart, maybe.
Right.
Like, none of it
Yes.
feels positive to me, is
Yeah.
maybe what I'm saying.
You would be right. Mostly you would be right. So, yeah, a hillbilly basically refers to an uneducated person specifically from the South, is what I'll put in air quotes, but more specifically from the Appalachians and the Ozark region. Because I'm going to get into a redneck, which is a little bit different, and that's more deep South versus hillbilly. Do you know where the Appalachians are?
I do. They're like the mountainy range, and I know, fun fact, it's where JD Vance is from.
Yes, hillbilly elegy, yes. And then the Ozarks are sort of the area between Missouri and Arkansas. It's this very big area where hillbillies live. So I did go into etymology here, just FYI. The etymology is a little bit fuzzy. But it basically, the first time it was ever heard was in some where did I write this? It was in some newspaper in America in the late 1800s, and they basically put the word hill in front of a very common name at the time, Billy. There were a bunch of these hill people living in Appalachia, and they were called hillbillies. They worked on the railroad. They had, it's sort of a class thing too. They had, sort of lower class jobs. Generally, it is a pejorative. It means stupid, uneducated, backwards. In my house growing up, I heard it all the time. Anybody who was an idiot in my house was a fucking hillbilly. And it didn't mean that they came from the South, but saying that someone came from the South and was stupid was generally like an insult. And I think something that, we're still sort of dealing with, America never really got over the Civil War. And this is part of the reason why I think we're at where we're at today. We've never really atoned for the sin of slavery. There is still very much a divide between North and South, I would say. And I think it's a point of pride for both people to either be from the South, if you like the South, or from the North, if you like the North. And I think there's a lot of people in the North who use hillbilly all the time as a pejorative. So that's basically what it is. Any questions so far?
Got several. So when in
Yes.
your house growing up, someone was being called a hillbilly,
Yeah.
they were just being called it as a substitute for stupid. They weren't specifically using it for someone who meets the term, like they're not from the South or the Appalachian region. It was just like they're stupid.
But it has like this Southern connotation. So it sort of means like you use an outhouse, you're poor, you're stupid, you don't know anything. As my dad would say, you don't know your ass from a hole in the ground. You're a hillbilly. It means you're also low class. There's like a trashy like tinge to the word as well. In my house, my dad would refer to anyone south of the Mason-Dixon line, basically that he didn't agree with, like politically, as a hillbilly.
Wow.
Do you know what the
Okay.
Mason-Dixon line is?
I do. I actually do
Okay.
know what that is, but I
That's
think a lot of
excellent.
people would not. So please explain.
So technically, it's the southern border between Pennsylvania and whatever state is below Pennsylvania, Maryland, I think. But it became known as the general like demarcation line during the Civil War of the North versus the South. So you end up hearing a lot about the Mason-Dixon line when you're going to school in America and learning about the Civil War. And I think, again, because we've never fully gotten over the Civil War, this idea that if you're north of the Mason-Dixon line, you're good to go, you're more advanced, you're in a more urban area, whereas if you're south of the Mason-Dixon line, you're in the South, you're backwards, you are racist, et cetera, et cetera. These are all, by the way, wild generalizations. I think we said this on the first episode, but these are just, general, the general vibes of what these words mean, I would say for most people, certainly most people in the North, which is how I grew up and where I grew up. So that's what I can speak to.
This is a safe space for generalizations.
Great.
Okay, my second question is do people self-identify as hillbillies? Like, is
Yes,
it a source of pride or
it can
people
be.
just accept it?
It can be, yes, because it represents like a whole subculture. And I think there are people who have reclaimed the word sort of over the years. They have, because when you think about the opposite of calling someone stupid or uneducated, maybe a nicer way to put that is to say they're simple. They focus on the simpler things. And I think that's become something that people, there's a lot of regional pride in the US for, as I'm sure there is in the UK. People are very proud to be from wherever they're from. And I think for people in the Appalachian region, there's a very long history of like proud people living there. And to be a hillbilly for some people means to be, to enjoy the simple things, to appreciate life, to go at a slower pace, to be a family person. And so there are people who've kind of reclaimed that word. I think that's maybe what J.D. Vance was attempting to do with the title of his book, Hillbilly Elegy. And that came out at such a pertinent time because Trump had just won his first term and all of the liberals, all of the Northern Yankee liberals were looking around saying, how could this happen? His book sort of swooped in and said, well, there's this whole group of white people, white Southern people. That's the other thing I would say. I think hillbilly mostly is referring to white people. I'm sure it can go another way, but that's generally my understanding, kind of like white trash from the South. And his book came in and sort of said, there's more that meets the eye, about your local hillbilly or, the hillbilly backstory, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
It also is a type of music that the current, what we now know as modern day country music, has its roots in what was called hillbilly music. That was bluegrass, folk, gospel. You can search hillbilly playlists on every streaming platform and find them. So there's a lot of pride, I think, musically when it comes to hillbilly culture, and sort of it also has to do with like making do with what you had around. All of these phrases, hillbilly and redneck, are very much class driven, like so many things in America. And I think, it has its sort of like insulting side, and then it has its side, like many words, where people reclaim it and want to use it as a good thing. Hillbilly is not to be confused with the redneck. A redneck is a little bit different. It means it's kind of a similar definition, whereas a redneck is also sort of an uneducated white trash person. Their necks are red because they've been working out on the field all day under the hot sun. So it's, again, white people who've gotten their skin burned. That's a redneck. But redneck really is more deep south, I would say. My boyfriend grew up in Florida, and like that is like redneck central. Redneck is the way I put it in my little outline. Redneck is to NASCAR what hillbilly is to moonshine. It's a bit
I
of a
like that.
different kind of culture. Like a redneck's a little more hooting and hollering, like loud, drunk. Hillbilly is more, toothless, making liquor in the bathtub. Again, huge generalizations, but that's like my general understanding, as someone who grew up in Illinois, which, by the way, Southern Illinois is kind of considered like the very north part of going south, because the next state below us is Kentucky, and that I think most people would very much consider. Sorry, is it Tennessee? Kentucky. Oh my God, I have to look at a map. Well, it's one of those, and the next state below us is definitely in the south. So yeah, that's what a hillbilly is.
This is mind blowing. Do rednecks and hillbillies get on?
Yeah, and I think in many cases they are used interchangeably. I think anyone who claims those titles would not. If you are a self-proclaimed redneck, you would not call yourself a hillbilly, and
Got
vice
it.
versa. But I think for people who are using both of those terms to insult someone, they're sort of interchangeable, because we kind of like just group, people in the north sort of group all the people in the south together if they're trying to insult them and say that they're stupid.
And what do rednecks and hillbillies call someone from Connecticut?
Think they would probably say, and this isn't, people aren't throwing around these terms that much, to be honest. Like a hillbilly, it's sort of a really specific word. I love it because it's so specific. It's like such a specific, picture in my mind that, I think someone from anywhere can be a hillbilly. Like, you're just a brainless idiot. You're a hillbilly. But I think they would call us Yankees, probably.
Hmm.
I think cracker might be thrown in the mix as well.
Never
Yeah.
heard anyone be described as a cracker.
Wait, do you know what that means?
No.
We're about to get in a lot of trouble. That's what a lot of like Black people will call white people, like a dumb cracker.
Because okay, I like that. I like that.
But I
That's
also
good.
think like all of these words, Yankee, hillbilly, redneck, these are all for white people.
Got
And I
it.
think when it's like white on white crime, they're thrown in cracker into the mix too. So I think Yankee would be the big one. I'd have to look up any other ones, but Yankee would be the big one.
Listen, there should be a lot more slurs for white people. That's all
I
I'm going to
agree.
say.
I agree. There certainly are not enough. But hillbilly is a great one. Like, it is great. I advise everyone to use it more often. You can be at the bank behind a fucking hillbilly who's like, taking their time, whatever.
I'm not going to take your advice here. I don't think I know that I can call someone a hillbilly and not get
You
shot.
can't call them that to their face. You can if you're like in an altercation. But if you're
But
like,
I
you know
can
what I mean?
describe someone to you. So I can be like, in the privacy of our group chat, I can be like,
Yeah.
I was at this bar with a hillbilly.
Yeah.
And
Or
you'd
you're
know
at
exactly who
self-checkout.
I
This
meant.
guy's taking forever. Like, what the hell is this hillbilly doing? You know what I mean? But it does kind of mean something specific. And I guess you can start to get into class stuff. Like, if I say that to my friend or a family member, they might think I'm talking about someone poor, and I might not be trying to make fun of someone who's poor. I'm trying to say that someone's stupid. You know what I mean?
I
So
understand.
it
It's
can get a little
complicated.
bit dicey.
Yeah. I'm going to
Yeah.
avoid this. I'm avoiding it.
Yeah, I think that's smart.
This is not for me. Me wandering into a situation as a British person and be like, "Hello, hillbilly."
Yeah,
Like I can just
don't do that.
imagine.
I
I
think
can
that's
just
wise,
imagine
actually. But
that
now
this
you
would
have a
go
little
very
bit more
wrong.
context. Do you
Okay,
hear this word a lot or not really?
feel like you hear it in American films.
Mhm.
And I feel like I would hear it occasionally in conversation. Again, as I said at the start, always in a negative connotation. Like to me, it's an insult. And then I guess I was a little bit confused by the Vance hillbilly elegy thing.
Mhm.
And I think I just thought, oh, that is a reclamation of this word. I did not read that book. I did watch the movie. And I was just like, oh, right, I get what he's maybe trying to do here. He's trying to explain that, like, and tell me if I pick this up correctly. It's like this is a word or a group of people that are looked down upon, but actually people just don't quite understand the situation. Actually, and I guess JD Vance himself was trying to suggest that, you know, everyone should admire him for coming from these circumstances and making this great thing of his life. That was
Yes, but
what
he
I
was
am I
actually the truth is, you got that exactly right. The truth is he's from Ohio. So he's not even a hillbilly, but his whole thing is he had family in
from
the
Appalachia.
Appalachian region. So he, but there are hillbillies who say he's not a hillbilly because he didn't, he's not true to this.
JD Vance purporting to be someone that he's not,
Isn't that
telling me
crazy?
stop.
Where did he go? Stanford, Harvard? One of those. Yeah.
Yale. He went to Yale.
Yeah. The only Yale hillbilly I know, I think.
Yeah, he's a piece of work.
Yeah. Well, now you're all set on
Thank
hillbillies.
you.
By the way, probably came at that with a little bit of edge because I am not denying that I grew up in like an anti-hillbilly household. Again, my dad was saying that every other sentence out of my dad's mouth was talking about a hillbilly. So now we know, mostly in the context of politics. So I'm not an unbiased messenger. I will say that, but
That's
it's time
fine.
to move on to maybe something a little less heated, but something I'm
Hmm.
very interested in. What the hell is a Hun? I have so many questions.
I love that you have no idea what this is.
I
And
literally have no idea.
you don't, right? You explained this to me before. Okay, so Hun culture is how I'm actually going to. There are Huns, which are individuals, but Hun culture is the umbrella term around it, and there is much debate about what it is. But everyone does sort of land in the same spot, so there's no agreed definition. It's not like I can look this up in a dictionary. Pretty much a new-ish concept, I'd say. It has evolved over the last decade, 2 decades, maximum 20 years, I'm gonna say. And it's one of these things that if you are versed in Hun culture, like, you know it when you see it. So everyone that's, like, into Hun culture, like, all agrees with what it is, but it does lack a clear definition. So I'm going to
Okay.
try and explain, and then I'm going to sort of I'm going to define it by explaining what it is, if that makes sense, as opposed to
Mhm.
giving you the sort of line from a dictionary. So it's when something, someone, or a moment is absolutely iconic, but it's simultaneously naff or tacky.
What's
And it's
naff?
like naff is like, like unclassy, like not very classy, like a little bit like what's really happened here, like tacky, but it's like camp and it's kitsch, so unserious.
Okay.
And it's very much appreciated by the girls, certain girls, but pretty much all of the gays.
I see. You're painting a picture. I understand.
Deeply rooted in British working class culture, which is where we might have some synergy with the hillbillies, and a very common expression in like British working class culture, if you're going to describe somebody, which is like kind of an insult, but also kind of saying they're iconic, is they're all fur coat, no knickers. Does that paint a picture for
Okay.
you? The
Yep.
exterior is definitely saying one thing, but like it's definitely camouflage for something very, very like unclassy.
Okay.
So, it's like the champagne lifestyle, but like with a, Lamborghini or a Prosecco budget.
Mhm.
It's very much in that world. And the people who are nailed on Huns are all British, pretty much. And I was racking my brains trying to think of a non-British person who could definitely fit the criteria of Hun. And I worked on this with my gay best friend, Ian Christie. And we have only figured out one non-British person who could come close to being described as a Hun. So I'm going to start
Okay.
there.
Okay.
And it's Sabrina Carpenter.
Interesting, because by your definition and some of the pictures I've seen, just like Daily Mail headlines regarding Huns, I was going to say Trisha Paytas. Would she be a Hun?
Trisha is definitely a Hun.
Because I'm feeling like Sabrina Carpenter is too talented to be a Hun. Like she's not there for no reason.
Okay, that's actually quite a good point. That is quite a good point because there is a theory that like if you're a famous Hun, it's like you're quite lucky to be famous because
Right.
the
That's
ta-
what I'm
the ta-
seeing.
Okay. Okay, you actually might be doing a much better job than me and Ian when we came up with Sabrina Carpenter. Trisha Paytas is definitely a Hun. I'm
Okay.
going to give you some British examples, some of which
Okay.
you'll have heard of and some of which you won't, and then we can actually like definitely decide on the Sabrina Carpenter and the Trisha situation. So these people are definitely Huns. They're also, so the Venn diagrams that are kind of all getting crossed here is they are a Hun, but they are a British icon, and
Okay.
they're like kind of got like national treasure status, right?
Mm-hmm.
Victoria Beckham
She's a Hun.
definitely a Hun, particularly old Victoria Beckham when she, because
I
you know
see.
now Victoria Beckham is
She's like
extremely
classy.
polished.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But back in
So
the
it's like
day,
leopard print. It's like bad hair, bad highlights. It's like tacky.
kind of, but like all of Girls Aloud are Huns. Do you know Girls Aloud?
Yeah.
Do you know who Denise Walsh is?
No.
So she is the mother of the lead singer of the 1975 who dated
Yes.
Taylor Swift. It was at Charlie XCX's wedding. She has like cropped sort of
Is she
peroxide
still a
blonde
Hun, or
hair.
you're saying she was a Hun when she was young?
She's always been a Hun.
Okay, because okay, go ahead.
She was in a soap opera. Generally, if you are in a soap opera, instant Hun
Mm.
status because
Okay.
it's this criteria. It's like everyone knows who you are,
Sort
but
of
like
housewivesy.
kind of very
Okay.
housewivesy,
I
very
see, I
housewivesy.
see. I'm getting it.
But she's also like very cabaret singer,
Mm.
and she comes out with these devastating one-liners. She's very much who she is. She used to very much love a drink. She's now sober. Denise Walsh is like Queen Hun, I'd say.
Okay.
There's also a woman called Jane McDonald, who you will never have heard of, but she rose to prominence in Britain because of a show where she was a cruise ship singer. And this was like a reality format where they go onto this cruise ship. And literally, this show is such a massive hit that Jane McDonald becomes one of the biggest celebrities in Britain, releases hundreds of albums. And she's just kind of like a very talented, but like she's a cabaret singer. Like, she's
Sure.
certainly not, she's certainly not Beyonce, and she's very kind of ordinary in a way, but also iconic. Do you know who Gemma Collins is?
Yes.
Gemma Collins,
But only
definitely a
from
Hun.
like the Daily Mail app.
Yeah,
That's why. Couldn't tell you a single fact about her.
definitely a Hun. A woman called Alison Hammond. She's a daytime TV presenter, also presents the Great British Bake Off. Massive Hun. Katie
I have a
Price.
question.
Go ahead.
Katie Price, I know. I remember because I used to read Delisted, which was like a iconic gossip site circa Perez Hilton days. And he was obsessed with Katie Price. So I do know who that is. I'm thinking of like Snooki. Would that be a Hun?
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay. But so I keep thinking that these girls are sloppy, but it doesn't sound like they necessarily are sloppy.
No, not necessarily. And honestly, I'm saying yes to some of these Americans. It is with the caveat that I do think that there is, but to be a Han is almost like you do have to be British. And
Okay.
we are going to lend this description to some Americans who most closely fit the description, which
Okay.
I do think means some of these reality stars do fit. Like some housewives definitely fit. Snooki definitely fits. Trisha is definitely, I think, up there. But there is definitely something about the Britishness about it.
Mm.
It's like all of the code, the way people speak, the way people dress, the things they value tend to be very British. So like they're a girl's girl, like they live for their holidays. They're definitely booking like a Jet2 holiday. They love it. They love a drink. They if the girls are having a girls' night out, there's probably some coordinated hat or t-shirt situation.
Okay. Yep.
They love pop music, trash TV, they love reality TV, they love drama, they love leopard print. Like you see what I'm saying? These are like people who are
Mm-hmm.
just like living life to the max, and the way they speak is inherently British. So even if we were to deign Hun status to Trisha Paytas, she does not speak like a British Hun because
Mm-hmm.
this is a whole language that only British Huns speak. So good examples of this would be hollybobs is your holiday. gonna have a little cocky tea, is having a cocktail.
Okay. Yeah.
One of my all-time favorites is in America now, it's being referred to as like an affordability crisis, but for a long time in Britain, we called it the cost of living crisis, which Huns decided to call the cosy lives.
Okay. I have heard that one. I have heard that one.
And
So there's a
the
lot
most
of gay influence here.
It's so camp. It's extremely camp, very drag queen. I'm gonna say most drag queens are basically Huns and
Okay.
follow
Yeah.
like the Hun lifestyle.
Yep.
You know, it's the kind of thing they would always call you babe or Hun. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of this originated from, or like I guess became solidified, was an internet meme, which was "You okay, Hun?"
That was going to be my question. Do these things have anything to do with each other?
They do. Now, "You okay, Han" became this incredibly big meme in Britain where people would say that in response to like a Facebook post that was like purposefully vague to elicit like concerned
Mm-hmm.
reaction, which I feel like was very specific to Facebook when people would put stuff on that feed. And so, like, an example of, like, you know, not putting up with this shit anymore, but would never actually say what the shit was, or like feeling blue, or like can't deal with this anymore. You know, this kind of like really like pick me energy of like, please, you know, give me some likes and answer my question. And a Han would generally respond with like, "You okay, Han?"
Okay.
And so that sort of became this like universal expression for like anyone who like crashed out basically. The response would be like, "You okay, hon?"
Mm-hmm.
So yes, a lot of it goes back to that. But then another question, another sort of absolute nailed on piece of hun culture would be a hun saying something like, "Not being funny, babe, but like that new haircut's a mess." Like they would start off almost with this quite gentle, like not being funny, but then they would literally like drag you to filth with whatever the follow up is after that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They're generally very honest people, call a spade a spade. And that is, you know, the way they live. They're very true to themselves, I
Do
think, if you are
people
a
like
Hun.
them? Like if you're at a bar and a group of
Love.
Huns come in, people are excited. They're not annoying to people?
Okay, if you're in a classy restaurant and you want some peace and quiet, massive gaggle of Huns is not going to get the best
I
response.
see.
But if you are in a drag brunch
Right.
nightclub, Weatherspoons, which is our chain of like, you know, budget pubs, uh, like you're going to be into the group of Huns coming in. Probably a really good example would be if you've got like a group of gays having brunch and like a gaggle of like girls all come tottering in with like a pink cowboy hat with feather trim, they're all going
Mm-hmm.
to be like, clocking them as Huns. That's a gaggle of Huns, a group of
I
Huns.
see. And do they originate from a specific part of the UK?
It's very rooted in working class culture. So
Okay.
that would be you know, places like Essex, where I'm from in the northeast, you know, Geordies, Mackhams, Liverpudlians, Scousers,
Mm-hmm.
Mancunians. So these sort of areas, like big, not rural generally. They're like cities with like big working class populations where historically they were all blue collar workers who generally have like strong regional accents. That's where a lot of this comes from.
Do people think they're like bimbo-y? They're stupid?
No, actually, not necessarily. I
It's
mean,
kind of surprising because they're women. So I feel like we
this
don't
is
like
true.
women.
Because Huns are specifically appreciated by other women and gays, it's that kind of like misogyny of it all is like a little, I'd say, more on the low side. But
Okay.
yes, I think a group of men would judge Huns in that way. And they definitely talk in a way like by using that sort of slang language, like hollybobs or whatever. I guess it will come across to some people as
Mm-hmm.
like being dumb. But like, I'm gonna say like a lot of it is just like playing the part, you know?
Right.
So I think
It's reminded me of like Paris Hilton, like back in the day. Like she was putting
kinda,
all of that on, you know?
kinda. But what I would say is Huns, I think, do appreciate the more unserious aspects of life. So oftentimes people do mistake that for people being stupid. But I
Hmm.
think these are just people that are like, "But we're not here for a long time, we're here for a good time, and so we're just
Hmm.
with it, you know?"
And it's like a new thing, or they've just kind of risen to the pop culture.
These people have always existed. So, like,
Yeah.
one of the original Huns is like a character in a soap opera called Beth Gilmoy. She was like the landlord of a pub in a soap opera. She always wore leopard print, had like a beehive, was like, you know, could like knock you out with a stare, huge tits, like just
Hmm.
the vibe, right? I mean, she was on the TV from the 1960s, but we didn't call her a Hun back then.
Right.
The sort of naming of Huns and this evolution of Hun culture, I'd say is fairly new. And a lot of it, so for further reading, follow two accounts on Instagram. One is called Huns Net and the other one's called Love of Huns. And they are kind of like the guiding light of like Hunnery.
Okay.
They kind of, I'm not saying that they get to like decide who's a Hun and who's not a Hun, but like they are constantly posting iconic clips from reality TV programs, moments from, Huns like that they love being iconic or doing something crazy. And I'd say like those two accounts have been really influential in kind of like shaping what I've just described, like in
I got
terms of
it.
like giving it some contours.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to follow.
it's very amorphous. And it is, I'm going to say it is fairly modern in the sense that it is 10, 15, like max 20 years ago. But I'm going to say the first time I heard the expression like Hun culture was maybe 10 years ago.
Okay. Wow. Well, you learn something new every day. I am going to probably now be texting you people and saying, is this a Hun, Mark? Is this a Hun? Yes, no. Because I think I'm there. I think I get it. But I think, like you're saying, there's a certain Britishness to it that I might just never fully get.
I think that's true. I do think it makes it hard for Americans to reach Hun status. So there may be like Hun adjacent. Like
Yeah.
they would be a Hun if they were British, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Right. I see. Yep. Got it.
Because there
Well,
definitely has to
now
be
I
something
know.
very, yeah, there definitely, the Britishness is key.
Wow. Learned so much. I don't know who half of these people that you said are, but I'm going to go Google all of them. I'm sure
I'm
I've
going to
seen
send you
them.
pictures.
I'm sure I've seen them.
If I can actually work out how to like insert pictures into the video version of this podcast, I shall.
Great. Great.
And that will help.
Awesome. Well, entertain, what am I trying to say? Infotaining.
Entertainment, infotainment.
Infotaining. Yes. What an infotaining episode.
I love it. That is a wrap from us. We will see you next Monday. New episodes drop every Monday. You can get us now. Now, episode 1 is live. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We're basically everywhere, live and direct.
That's right. We'll see you next week.
See you on Monday. Bye.
Bye.